Thanks for subscribing to and downloading Plant Talk with your host, Fred Howard. Plant Talk is sponsored by Franklin Park Conservatory and Botanical Gardens in Columbus, Ohio, featuring exotic plant collections and displays, seasonal art and nature-based exhibitions, outdoor gardens, and a variety of educational programming. fpconservatory.org. Now, here's your host, Fred Howard.
Good morning, Ohio gardeners, and what a wonderful weekend it is. Not necessarily because of the weather, but because of the weekend that it represents. And looking back 2 days, I need to still get out and get some exercise. May even have to mow my lawn to work off the rest of that bird that doesn't seem to be going away. And having had a recent chat with my doctor, I've got to start shaping up, or she is going to really be getting insistent. So before that happens, let's just say it has been a wonderful weekend up to this moment, and we hope the next hour makes that continue. And we move on from there into the thoughts of Central Ohio and all of Ohio gardening.
And sitting alongside Fred Howard this morning in our Plant Talk studios, I'm Mark Neuse, and we won't be taking your calls today on a special edition of Plant Talk. And first, Fred, what is still in color?
Well, interestingly enough, Mark, there are a lot of things. Relatively few flowers. There are a few flowers left on the witch hazels. I looked down in some of the protected spots where I have this little plant called lamium growing. There are still some few flowers on that. There are several other perennials that have not been frozen per se yet. So there's a little bit of color, but we really have to hunt for it. What we've turned our attention to now, or what I at least do myself, is to the evergreens. One that I have talked about over and over and over again because it's such an exciting thing in being contra-indicative of the season. The arum foliage started to come up about 6 weeks ago. Right now it's at full beautiful height, beautiful green, kind of marbled, or let's just say lined with the, tan to cream color, standing tall, being 12 inches or less. But at the same time, that with this big broad leaf right next to a boxwood with little leaves no bigger than your fingernails, and the contrast is still there. The color is still there. There's an awful lot of tan and brown around that, but there's still color out there if we look close.
And time now for Fred's Plant of the Week, brought to you by Sweet Peat, Mother Nature's secret recipe, a 100% organic composted soil conditioner that's so versatile it can be used as a top dress, a mulch, even as the basis for an organic growing medium. Turn your yard into a landmark, not a landfill. www.sweetpeat.net. And Fred, your plant of the week.
Well, it's plants this time. I'm looking down for the most part in terms of what their height would be, and then I'm thinking more about what has already been ingested. And that's the sage, the thyme, the rosemary, the various flavorings for this repast that we had on Thursday. It's parsley, onions, the dillweed, whatever you've used as personal preference to savor and enjoy and increase the enjoyment of some of the foods we just had. These are the things we give thanks for. We had the food, we spice it up a little bit, and the plants of the week then are those various types of herbs that made it really super.
And, Fred, there are people who, I'm not going to say make a living, but certainly make a hobby out of herb gardening alone.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, it's becoming big time. There are whole organizations that devote their time, thoughts, and interest to that segment of gardening. Herb Society, I believe it's correctly stated, Herb Society of America. I might be wrong on that. But this is a vast organization of very intense gardeners. And they know the soils, the moisture, the temperature, everything that goes into whether it needs exceptionally good drainage, which is mostly the case in herbs, or whether a little bit more moisture, where they should be for a winter setting and so on, not only for visual, but then to live over. It is a segment of intense gardening. That's all there is to it, and it's getting bigger.
And there are a lot of people who do herb gardening right on the windowsill and have fresh herbs all season long.
Yes, and that windowsill will, frankly, do the job, but then there's even an upgrade on that. I was in a lighting shop recently that principally was for lights, for interior lighting for plants, not illumination for us to see by. They had a wonderful little set of, it was either 6 or 9 whole tray that you could put little plants in, It had an illuminated top with the right bulb to emit the right light rays and so on. You could set it to be on for a certain number of hours a day, go off. It was semi-automatic watering, and all you really had to do with this apparatus in place, any place in the house, but in the kitchen area, was go snip off what you want as a fresh herb any day of the year, and especially, of course, in the wintertime.
And this is a special Thanksgiving weekend edition of Plant Talk, and we thank you very much for tuning in. More from Fred Howard, the Ohio nurseryman, coming up next on Plant Talk.
This summer at Franklin Park Conservatory and Botanical Gardens, the gardens are in full color. Walk amidst tropical and native butterflies in flight in the indoor Pacific Island Water Garden. View the conservatory's bonsai collection and experience the exhibition Origami in the Garden. Find details at fpconservatory.org.
And welcome back to our special Thanksgiving weekend edition of Plant Talk with Fred Howard, the Ohio nurseryman. I'm Mark Neuse sitting alongside. And Fred, as always, we tell people to check out our website,
right,
which is planttalkradio.com. Lots of information there. And if you want to learn more about the program, you can also email Fred questions anytime, day or night, fred@planttalkradio.com. We try to get to as many of the emails as we can during the Saturday program. And we have one here from Uricksville, Ohio, and it's Dana, and the question is this. We have a honey locust that we planted this spring. The whole tree is about 14 feet tall. The trunk part is about 5 feet tall and about 2 inches around. We've noticed that a buck has rubbed the bark off this very pretty big area of the tree on one side of the trunk. They want to know exactly what they can do about it. A forester friend told them the tree probably wouldn't survive.
Well, the first thing they need to do about it is get a bigger freezer. Now, aside from that, and there are many people that don't agree with that given thought, but I happen to be a hunter, and I have observed deer over a great number of years and under many, many circumstances. As the deer population is growing, so too is the need to protect nurseries and our individual homegrown plants or home-growing plants. Deer, let's just say, as best I understand it, from what I've been told and observed, the bucks are judging where the tines on their antlers are by rubbing and doing. They're rubbing the velvet off. They're doing a lot of things, but they're getting ready for battle this time of year. As they do that, they need something to scratch their horns on, or antlers in this technical case. They will destroy some trees. They may have destroyed the honey locust of thought here. I don't know that. I'm going to suggest, though, as a general rule, if more than half the bark or half the perimeter or radius has been destroyed, 50% of the way around. If that has been destroyed, there's a good chance there won't be a good, not likely to have good recovery. Now, I know that not to be the case because I've been watching a tree for over 35 years that was destroyed by a car bumper, more than 50% of the way around. That tree is still alive, well and healthy. It has all but, matter of fact, only I would know because I know where to look on the scarring of that tree. So it did recover. So there is an exception on the long end. But by and large, 50% is the point to consider at the possible start over. Now, if the person observes that it's 50%, but it's not an absolute 50% all continuous. In other words, there's an inch and a half off here, and then there's an inch of bark intact, and then another inch and a half off, or whatever. You do some math, but the more chances there are for continuing vertical connection, the better the chances for recovery, because trees do not heal. Most plants do not heal. They cover over their injuries. So if there is a chance for this tree to get through its first year, into and through the first year, it will start to form what is called callus. Callus will then grow, hopefully each year, to where it comes then touching back together on the base of the hardwood center, and eventually just simply not be noticeable. At 50%, this is not as apt to happen, even to the extent that at 40%, you have interrupted the vascular tissue or you have destroyed the part of the cylinder or tube, however you want to look at it. And therefore, even if it does live, there's going to be a weak point until that tree gets 5 to 8 years down the road for it to recover and grow and close that tube. There can be decay in the meantime. So there's a lot of reasons to say probably all over. However, a 14-foot tall tree they probably mean 2 inches through the diameter. This would mean that we're dealing with a substantial tree that is just about the prize size that a buck likes to work with. Anything over 4.5 inches, they won't mess with. And then from that down, and they love that 2-inch size range, they can cause all kinds of damage. I would say wait until spring. Literally check the tree at that time and all through the spring, see what it's doing. In the meantime, if there is loose, ragged tissue, you can clip it back. Be careful that you don't cut something that is still indeed connected, and then just wait until into this spring. Now, they may well lose a year, because waiting into spring, it may make it difficult to transplant yet later in the spring, early summer. So they'd have to wait till fall. But I would say that a visual measurement or factual measurement, if it's less than 50%, there is a good chance that it will survive over a period of time. You just keep it fertilized, watered, and growing, and it'll take care of itself from there. You do not paint that wounded area. That can cause all kinds of problems of its own. We used to think differently, but now we know not to paint, and you just wait and see. You lose at most a year. I'd say take the chance.
And, of course, time to put down some deer repellent.
Yes, by all means, various manufacturers, including some of our sponsors, put down a deer repellent. Even people we're going to be talking about next year that we haven't heard from yet, that it is a repellent. Now, you have to know you have to refresh it. It'll tell you on the box. Use it once a week or use it every other week for 2 weeks and then once a month. Be sure to read the label. My brother and I had a interesting interchange. I gave him some material that we'll be hearing about more next year, and because he is in a deer zone. Up in that ugly state north of here, and especially this time of year. He used it, and the deer quit. They quit destroying his property, so to speak. Months went by. I hadn't bothered to ask. We were talking on a Saturday evening about various things, and we came around, are you still using the deer repellent? We're back into that time of year where there's high risk again. No, they're leaving me alone now. I said, you better use it. Yeah. Well, I don't think he used it that evening, because the next morning he called me at 6:45. This is a Sunday morning now. Got me out of bed to tell me how many deer were still bedded down in his backyard. They had destroyed 200 hostas. Oh. Now, they weren't destroyed because of the time of the year. They just ate the tops off, and they will recover and come back. But I am not going to go into his vocabulary at that moment in time. Yeah. I'm just going to tell you that you've got to read the label, use these things as accordingly.
Yeah, the FCC would send a squad car if you did that.
Yes, they would.
Well, you're listening to a special Thanksgiving weekend edition of Plant Talk, and we thank you very much for listening. We'll be back with more from Fred Hauer, the Ohio nurseryman, in just a minute. Stick with us.
This summer at Franklin Park Conservatory and Botanical Gardens, the gardens are in full color. Welcome its tropical and native butterflies in flight in the indoor Pacific Island Water Garden. View the conservatory's bonsai collection and experience the exhibition Origami in the Garden. Find details at spconservatory.org.
And welcome back to the program, a special Thanksgiving weekend edition of Plant Talk with Fred Hauer, the Ohio nurseryman. And Fred, give us an update now on the emerald ash borer.
I'd be happy to. And it can't be absolute or complete, either one, but I'd like to follow up because, perhaps 6 weeks ago, we had an emailer, and then we've had a couple of people directly call in about the emerald ash borer. I don't think I've done justice to that topic, or at least I would like to re-explore. There is potential for the future of certain selected ash trees, and I think it's the best way to start. Modern science is fantastic, and millions have been spent in the recent past working on what to do, what is it, how to handle it, can we use a disease vector, can we use another insect, can we do whatever. It comes down to, at least in my general understanding right now, that emerald ash borer can be managed, or let's just say disallowed, from entering trees that have been treated. Now, there are over 2 billion ash trees in the state of Ohio.
Wow.
We're talking about a few of those that can be saved, if you wish, and if they are in particularly a critical spot on your property, for example, west of a 2-story home, and they shade 2/3 the entire front of the house in the afternoon sun. They're going to be an advantage in the course of the summer in perhaps just a savings on air conditioning alone worth what the treatment will cost.
Right.
Now, the treatment I can't define, but it's not going to be mega dollars. It's not loose change, but in the $100 to $200 range, a given tree can be treated. The chemistry is being, let's just say, improved. And I'm not going to go into the details because I don't have many of them, but we know for sure as an industry now that to use materials either of merit or imidacloprid or similar materials that will get right through the bark of a tree or can be injected through the bark of a tree, get inside the tree, distribute in the vascular system, and when this little rascal bites and goes in, it is killed before it gets a chance to do much damage. Now, that having been said, the initial reaction